What survival myth is completely wrong and could really get you in trouble? The first mistake in wilderness is to look for food and water first before having shelter. Also, if you have to forage for food, avoid mushrooms entirely. Odds are so slim you'll find an edible kind that you're much better off looking for things like nuts, seeds, and berries. Some people say that herbivore animals are friendly and peaceful, so you're safe around them. Seriously, everything from cows to deer can unalive you if you make it angry. It is usually a good idea if you're in the wilds to not get near any kind of large animal. But herbivores can often be more aggressive than the predators. If a predator attacks you, you have a fairly good chance of scaring it off, especially if it's smaller than you, because it's likely only looking for food. If an herbivore attacks you, you're screwed because it genuinely wants to unalive you. Story 2. Almost anything related to avalanches. Here are a few popular and false myths. They strike at random. Most avalanches that injure or unalive people are caused by those people, and they always show signs of instability, if you're paying attention. The problem is that there are a lot of false positives. Where the signs are there, the instability is there, but people just don't quite manage to trigger them. That you should be quiet to be safe from avalanches, because they're caused by sound. Sound does not trigger avalanches. Even very loud sounds are nowhere near enough. Avalanche control is done with howitzers and dynamite charges that you can get out of the way. Well, sure, of course, sometimes it's possible, but they can travel up to 60 miles per hour, and they can let loose across an entire slope all at once. By the time it slides, you are likely in it and it's inescapable. That you can save yourself by swimming. Maybe for very small ones, but usually you're just being thrashed. I've heard it compared to being in a side-loading washing machine, that you can spit to tell which direction is up. You won't be able to see anything useful, and gravity still works. But it's irrelevant because that relies on this next myth, that you can dig yourself out. Even if you are inches below the surface, it's unlikely. The snow sets up very hard, very fast, as though you got caught up in a snowplow clearing a parking lot after a big snowstorm. People caught in avalanches report not being able to move their fingers. Along with that are all the normal problems people have with low probability, high consequence risks. The "it won't happen to me" stuff. But that's not so much an issue of myths as poor judgment due to things like familiarity with a slope, desire to be accepted by a social group by skiing that rad backcountry line, feeling committed because you came all this way, deferring to someone you perceive as an expert, desire to get the first tracks after a storm, social proof where you see others doing it so it must be safe, etc. So basically all I learned from this post is that if I'm in an avalanche, I'll die. Thanks, OP. I don't know if this helped, but I'm now afraid of avalanches, despite being nowhere near where they would happen for the most part. Story 3. Hit a snake fast with a shovel or unalive it by snapping it. If it bites you, suck the poison out or use a tourniquet. No. Oh my god. Australians are constantly bewildered by every other country's madcap insanity around this. We live with deadly snakes. Why do people do these things? 1. Just don't mess with the snake. Just leave it alone. Magically, you don't get bitten. 2. If you messed with the snake, see point 1, we told you not to mess with it. Call an ambulance. Use a broad pressure bandage to immobilize the whole limb. Never, ever tourniquet a snake bite. You are reducing the natural lymph movement through broadly spread pressure, not trying to give them gangrene. The victim must not move unless being carried. Don't touch your damn mouth to the wound. Don't wash it. Just stop. Immobilize. Write the time of the bite and circle the location on the outside of the bandage, and wait for professional help. If you have to choose between walking or waiting if you're a long way from help, you wait. You are more likely to survive by not moving at all. Please, for the love of God, just leave it alone. We have many more venomous snakes than a mere rattler, and we die much less often because we do not mess with the spicy danger noodle. Now these are tips that will actually help. I have also heard, although admittedly not really believed, the whole sucking the venom out thing. Definitely doesn't really make much sense if you think about it for more than 3 seconds. But people do believe it, so it's good to get that out there. Not moving is also a very important one too. I'm glad OP brought that up. But really, the most important, as OP said, is rule 1. Don't bother the snake. They're not out here to unalive you, they're just chillin'. Story 4. If you get lost in the desert, do not ration your water. You don't know how long you'll be there, and if you ration, you'll dehydrate yourself faster. Use the water to keep you in shape for a little longer, which in turn can help you mentally. I read this somewhere, which also mentioned that many people found dead in the desert still have a full canteen of water because they tried to ration it. Story 5. Dude, I've been waiting to rant about this. Hopefully now I can help someone instead of just annoy my friends. It's a popular belief to either pull off a leech once it's bitten you or to pour salt on it so it lets go. Never do this. Pulling them off sounds dangerous, because it is, but pouring salt on them is even worse. Their entire body is a mucous membrane, aka salt on it hurts. It causes them to projectile vomit before they let go, and your blood, any parasites or diseases they have, along with any other human or animal blood in their tummy, immediately goes into your bloodstream. And just like pulling them off, it can also cause them to lose teeth, which can also get into your bloodstream and unalive you. It sounds terrifying and faint-inducing, but truly the best way to remove a wild leech safely is to let nature take its course. Once its belly is full, it'll let go, and no teeth or any other yucky stuff will be in your blood. I did not know the whole thing about salt. Admittedly, I hadn't even heard to put salt on a leech if it bites you. I'm not around leeches, I guess. But the projectile vomiting once they're in pain from the salt thing? Oh no. Yeah, that sounds pretty bad. Parasites essentially IV'd into your bloodstream sounds awful. No thank you, I'll pass. Story 6. Not so much a myth, but people often think that getting to safety or getting out of a vehicle or traffic after a crash is a good idea. If you're ever involved in a serious wreck and you suffer any damage to your body, it's very important not to move. If you can do so, call 911. But as far as moving any limb, with the exception of calling medical emergency personnel, readjusting your body to get more comfortable, no, don't do any of that. You can cause your broken bones you may have suffered to start cutting or puncturing your skin or insides, which then would start you bleeding internally. Story 7. In case of a nuclear disaster, you don't have time to follow your 1.5-hour escape plan to that mountainside safe house. In the case a nuclear bomb detonates and you don't die in the initial blast, you have a maximum of 10 minutes before the radiation falls to the ground, and you will need to stay at least 24 hours in a protected area. Example, a bathroom with no windows. 98% of the casualties after a nuclear bomb will be people sitting in their cars, stuck in traffic, while breathing in those radioactive particles trying to get home to rescue their cats. Edit. The time frame from the nuclear explosion to when it becomes relatively safe to change the location can be 24 hours, 48 hours, or even up to 2 weeks depending on the circumstances. Radioactive decay is next level science. Story 8. Pouring salt on a serious burn does not help you. Learned from experience. I was a teenager when a bad situation led me to being branded and burned with cigarettes multiple times. Afterward, not sure how to help me, my friend remembered Gladiator and poured a thing of salt over the worst burns. I ended up going to the doctor the next day. They had to scrape the dead skin away, which was made all the more painful by the gritty salt. But hey, live and learn, I guess. Story 9. When you're a girl and you're running away from the murderer through the woods, don't constantly look the opposite direction you're running. This will definitely lead you to tripping and falling. If you do trip and fall, don't lay there crying and wiping your hair out of your face. This will definitely give the murderer the opportunity to catch up to you. Similarly, when running away from a car or a giant wheel, don't run the direction that the pursuer is traveling. This will definitely keep you in the direct path of the pursuer. Instead, veer to either the right or the left of the path of the pursuer. If you are the beautiful wife and children of a protagonist, do not sit around the breakfast table on a sunny, lovely morning, especially not talking about how happy you are together. And this is the key to any middle school or high school loved ones. Do not make eye-rolling and or snarky remarks about what a doofus your dad is. This will definitely lead to your family being either unalived or kidnapped that same day. OP, I hate to break it to you, I think the people you're writing this to aren't going to be able to hear this or read this. The intentions are good though, but no, you're not going to save those horror movie victims. Story 10. I'm seeing a lot of regurgitated info, so let me share one with you folks that I've seen mentioned nowhere. Tampons and gunshot wounds, or any serious puncture wound. It is a common bit of fake knowledge that is often heard spouted by preppers, gun guys, and mall ninja commandos all across this nation and beyond. You should carry a tampon in your personal individual first aid kit or blowout kit in case you get shot. The theory is that the tampon is the perfect size and shape for a gun wound, so it'll be a very fast and convenient way to plug the hole. Only it doesn't work, and it never could. When simple pressure isn't working and a tourniquet isn't able to be applied, groin, neck, armpit, etc., we will pack the wound in an attempt to stop the bleeding. What we are doing is pushing all that gauze up against the damaged artery or vein, as to provide direct pressure to the location in an attempt to allow clotting to close things off. That pressure can be substantial and is resisting the outward flow caused by your heart. It can, in fact, be high enough to stop the bleed altogether. Gauze is made to promote the clotting of blood. It doesn't exist to absorb blood. It does absorb it, but it gives it something to build on. Well, that's the exact opposite of a tampon. A tampon is meant to absorb blood and remove it in a sanitary manner. We want the opposite of that. The average gauze roll is 4 yards long and 3 to 4 inches wide or better. The average tampon is something like 4 inches square of material. A tampon is made to absorb something like 15 milliliters of blood. A major artery/vein that is perforated will leak several hundred milliliters a minute. Ask yourself if that tampon sounds adequate in light of that. Story 11. The entirety of survival culture is based on a lie, that it is useful. It comes from the military doctrine designed for pilots or commandos behind enemy lines. The training is called survive, evade, resist, escape. It is built on the central premise of not using local resources and avoiding being found. But for civilian use, it's useless for 2 reasons. The first is that the vast majority of survival situations are due to injury. Wilderness first aid training. The second reason is 90% of wilderness accidents happen within less than 20 kilometers from large metropolitan areas. Survival shows tend to place the victim many tens or hundreds of miles away from civilization. This almost never happens in reality. Even those further afield are almost always within close range of some type of search and rescue. The most common factor in tragic outcomes is folks not telling someone where they're going, especially details, like what route and what time they expect to be back. There are plenty of other bushcraft skills that can improve comfort, but then so does a space blanket and some T3s. Story 12. Mythbusters ruled it was a myth that big ships drag you down with them. The highest ranked officer that survived the Titanic almost didn't survive because he was sucked down with the ship. Only a boiler explosion blew him free from the ship. Large ships sinking are incredibly dangerous. In addition to sucking you down with them, they can also roll over on top of you, or drench you in flammable fuels. Always swim away from sinking ships. I honestly can't tell if OP is saying that they got this information from Mythbusters or Mythbusters was wrong. I don't know how to parse this post. I do get the final point though. Swim away from sinking ship. Got it. Story 13. That you can't get lost on marked paths. A lot of people assume being on marked paths means you're safe, but a marked path is just a marked path. You step off the path, you can get lost in a matter of minutes. Take a referee whistle camping. Make your kids wear one. Make everyone in your group wear one. Make animals wear noisy jingle bells. Whistles are deeply unnatural sounds that cut through 99% of sound and hit our ear at the same frequency as a crying baby. They require a lot less energy and lung power to make work effectively, so even an exhausted person can blow their whistle. Think of Rose in the Titanic, breathless and freezing, saving herself with a whistle. That's why they use whistles on big noisy ships. Never go off the path to where you can't see it. If you need to pee or crap, do it in the sight of the path or your hiking companions. Take a whistle. Story 14. Anything having to do with bears. Always carry bear spray on you. Don't run, you'll excite the damn thing and it will catch you. If it's brown, lie down, curl into a ball and cover your neck. Don't move. Once it's figured out you aren't a threat, it'll leave you alone. If it's a black bear, you fight with everything you've got as it will unalive you and eat you. The biggest thing is prevention. If you see a baby bear, get the hell out of there. If you smell bear pee, get the hell out of there. But seriously, folks, if you're going into an area notorious for bears, always carry bear spray and a weapon to defend yourself with. Also, coyotes. Unless you're like 5'0" or a child, a single coyote won't attack you. If there's a group, don't get encircled, but you do need to stand your ground. If there's more than one of you, then you're fine. They won't approach unless desperate. But of course, there are special cases. Just don't find yourself in that situation to begin with. Story 15, a response to story 14. 2 big problems here. 1, the old adage of if it's brown, lie down, if it's black, fight back, is not correct. Modern bear attack response is based on the behavior of the bear, not the color, especially because you can find brown-black bears and nearly black-brown bears in the wild. If the attack is territorial or defensive in nature, for example, you got too close to a cub, carcass, or the bear exhibited warning behaviors such as mock charges before the attack, then you play dead regardless of species. If, however, the attack is entirely unprovoked, effectively in ambush, then you need to fight back because the odds are very good that the bear sees you as prey. Again, regardless of species. Problem 2. I don't know if you've ever tried to hit a charging bear in the face with bear spray, but it isn't easy. The more effective way to employ it is similar to a fire extinguisher. Wave the spray back and forth in the path of the bear, forcing it to run through the cloud. Important caveat to bear spray: it's an irritant as you spray it, and when it's hanging in the air. However, once it settles to the ground, it is a bear attractant, and will draw curious bears to the area. If you have to use bear spray, you need to go home. The smelly can in your pack is also an attractant. Source: I live in Alaska. My day job is search and rescue, and I recreate in the bush year-round. I work regularly with wildlife specialists and have had multiple encounters with brown and black bears in the wild. No polar bears yet. Well, I was also a big believer in if it's brown, lay down, if it's black, fight back, so this is actually good to know. And there are bears around me, so doubly good to know. I do want to say I don't really understand OP saying that you use it similar to a fire extinguisher, because they follow it up with saying force the bear to run through the cloud. Fire doesn't run through the fire extinguisher stuff, at least as far as I know. I've never had to use a fire extinguisher. But yes, good information. Thank you, OP. And I especially trust OP because they say they're from Alaska. If there's anyone I would trust with information about bears, it would be someone from Alaska. Story 16. I learned this today, actually. You won't get hypothermia within 3 minutes after falling into frigid water. People often panic thinking that they have seconds to get themselves out of a bad situation when they fall through ice. They thrash about and freak out and make bad decisions. If you are planning on crossing ice, make sure you have recovery ice picks on you before you leave on your trip. And make sure you're wearing them when you actually cross. If the ice breaks and you fall in, you have 10 minutes to get back out of it. After 10 minutes, your muscles are going to start feeling too weak to pull yourself out. So here's what you do. After you fall in, it will take 1 minute for your breath to stop spasming and your skin to get numb to the cold. Tread water for that minute. Gather your wits and look around for the clearest exit. Head toward the nearest exit. If there's land close by, you're in luck. But if it's ice, use your picks to grab on. Kick your legs. This will bring your body horizontal to the ice. Keep pulling yourself forward with your arms and kicking your legs until your body is up on the ice. Stay prone and move towards the shore. Crawl or roll. If you manage to get out of there, depending on how long you were stuck in the water, you've got about 2 hours to be rescued and warmed up before your internal temperature reaches 30 degrees Celsius and you go into cardiac arrest. It's really nice of OP to lay it out in such an organized sort of flow chart almost. I can't wait to fall into freezing water and immediately forget all of this. Story 17. If you're really cold, don't rub your hands together and exhale warm breath onto them. Doing that creates a false warming sensation. In reality, rubbing your hands together does virtually nothing to keep you warm, and exhaling warm breath on them could actually decrease your core temperature. Instead, you should cross your arms and put your hands, open with fingers together like blades, into your armpits, and then press your folded arms tightly against your chest. That'll create sort of a blood warming loop that'll increase your core temperature, or at least keep it from dropping further. So you're telling me with this posture, with my folded arms against my chest, I essentially become a water cooling unit for my computer? Except instead of cooling, it's supposed to be warming? That's kinda cool. Looking back on all of the stories we've listened to, it kinda just sounds like don't go to cold places, doesn't it? Between avalanches, ice, now this. Not one thing about sharks or anything though, so hey, tropical waters, all good. That is not professional advice, safety or otherwise, by the way. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you managed to learn something today that will maybe save you in the future. I hope you have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.